Hiya! Welcome! So this is a new series that I'm starting from today called Minidisc Monday. I suppose it's technically kind of like a spin-off from Records Roundup, as it's the same sort of format really, where I show you a musical release. But in this series, I'm going to focus just on one, maybe occasionally more than one, mini disc per video out of my extensive MD collection, because mainly, not only I think it will be good content for anyone in the vinyl community or just interested in mini disc as a format, but also the vast majority of my mini disc collection, yes, it's been shown on the channel, but it's been shown so briefly. I remember doing 2 or 3 mini disc update videos years ago. This was before I even got back into collecting vinyl in 2019. I just spent so little talking about the albums and the mini discs that I wanted to showcase pretty much, hopefully, what will end up being my entire mini disc collection, which I suppose technically it's still growing, albeit very, very slowly. But there was a time, particularly pre-2019, where mini disc, I was so gung-ho for it, and it is still, I would say, probably equal to vinyl as my favourite format to collect really. There's just something that's magical about mini disc to me, about a format that promised a lot, particularly in the home recording field when it was first released, first announced in the early 90s, and it was expected that by the end of that decade it would have superseded cassette, but it didn't for a couple of reasons. There's videos elsewhere on YouTube by the likes of Techmoan who explain why minidisc didn't really catch on, particularly here in Europe, certainly in the United States, and it did okay in Japan, but it never really, as a worldwide music format, superseded cassette, even though there was some fantastic hardware to not only play pre-recorded mini discs, but of course record onto MD as well. Computer software so that you could port your track listings across if you were dubbing stuff from a PC. I'm not going to get into any of that in this series. It's strictly about the music. I want to show you plenty of albums that I've got in my MD collection. I'm picking them at random really. There's no rhyme or reason to the order of these. Just ones that I want to show you first and foremost. I think this series will probably be every couple of weeks rather than every week, even though I know I've got enough MDs in my collection, whereas this could be a weekly series that will go on well over a year, but we'll try and spin it out even longer. So the first mini disc I want to show you today in my collection is one that isn't a studio album, it's not a compilation. I will be showing obviously some studio albums over the course of the next weeks, months, years maybe, but this is actually a live album. It can't be the only live album I've got in my mini disc collection. I'm looking now and I must have others. I've got so many it's difficult to keep track sometimes. This is certainly one of the rarest mini discs I think I've got, although it didn't cost me too much I don't think. I'm not going to discuss prices for these or where I got them from, because chances are they're either going to be off Discogs or eBay, and I've bought them so many years ago I can't remember the price. But I want to show you Oasis, Familiar to Millions, and this is quite a unique one because it might be the only 2 mini disc set I've got in my collection. I'm just having a glance at my MDs, they're all here sort of behind the camera, displayed in cassette racks, which sounds weird, but a tip for anyone who's thinking of getting into collecting MD. Just normal cassette racks, you know, the plastic things with 10 slots in them, they are good for MD. The mini discs stick out, but these are all the same size, these sort of cases, so they all look uniform, and it makes them quite easy to grab, to be honest, and they're perfectly safe. I've never had any mini discs fall out of the slots either. But Oasis, Familiar to Millions, 2 mini disc set, and on the back it talks about the summer of 2000, the band's 2 concerts at Wembley Stadium were the most eagerly anticipated shows of the summer and proved to be incredible highlights of what had been the band's most well-attended and successful world tour ever. The tour would have been the Standing on the Shoulder of Giants tour. That album would have come out a few months before this. as this was a 2000 release. This had a lot of releases on different formats, and the nice thing about it for collectors and completists, I suppose, is that each format had a different shade of colour. Of course, the Minidisc one here is sort of like a teal blue sort of colour, but it also came out on DVD, VHS, LP, CD and cassette. This is, I would say, maybe with the exception of the vinyl version, because that hasn't had a reissue from Oasis / Big Brother Records, but this is bound to be the most rarest format for Familiar to Millions. I've not got this on any other format. I don't double up on Oasis. I suppose the DVD might be quite nice. I like that it's still got a little hype sticker there. You don't always get those saved on original Minidisc cases. This is a great live album, this, even though you'd say it was certainly after Oasis's peak. I mean, I've got the Nebworth 96 concert on CD. I mean, that was obviously the legendary thing, even though a lot of hardcore Oasis fans say, oh well, there was better concerts than that before and after. When I was reading an Oasis book on my Kindle recently, I was reading about the gigs where these were recorded. I think this one was mainly recorded on the first night, because they did 2 nights at Wembley. The second night apparently was a little bit of a disaster, but you can go away and look up specific information yourself, really. We'll get into it and I'll show you how it's laid out here. So this is your standard, well, it's not a standard, that's the point really, but it's like your normal Minidisc case, but instead of there just being one disc, they've modified it so it can fit 2 in. So there's your 2 MDs there. I'll get one of them out to give you a closer look. Whether I'll be doing this in so much detail in every episode of Minidisc Monday, I'm not sure, but at the moment, as I'm starting this and feeling my way around this new series, I'll show you at least one of the discs in more detail. So that's disc 1, and it's got all of the tracks on there printed out on the back, and there's the front with the green label. I really like this album, and it being a 2 Minidisc set at the time, I think, although I can't remember exactly what I paid for it, and it wouldn't have been cheap because Minidisc isn't really. It did feel like a little bit of a bargain, if I recall. Just the case there is a little bit chipped, but that's the thing with MD cases, they're sort of not much better than old audio cassette cases really, in that they're easy to damage, get chipped and get the hinges broken off. Nice little booklet as well. If you don't mind all your text and your artwork being really small, you know, it's pretty much cassette size really, maybe slightly bigger ultimately. You get some nice inserts in Minidiscs as well, and this Oasis one is no exception. You know, I'm a big vinyl collector, as you know, and part of the enjoyment of collecting vinyl for me is just having the sleeves and the artwork and the liner notes just big, and you're able to enjoy it. I mean, this is a series where I'm going to be wearing my reading glasses all the time, because just the stuff on a Minidisc case and in a Minidisc booklet or insert is just too small for me to read. We'll go through the track listing here. Hopefully I'll be able to play a little clip of something from this album, and I'll try and do that for every edition of Minidisc Monday going forward, but obviously I might get hit with the copyright Gestapo telling me to remove stuff, so it's not a guarantee, it's not a promise that I can play music from each album every time. On Minidisc 1 we've got Fucking in the Bushes, which was actually not a live performance, it was just like played as like intro music. That was from Standing on the Shoulder of Giants. Go Let It Out, which was the first single off that album. Who Feels Love, which was the second one. Then they go into some more sort of classic Oasis, you know, 1990s Oasis, with Supersonic, Shaker Maker, the excellent Acquiesce, Step Out, which was a B-side to Don't Look Back in Anger, I think. Gas Panic, which was from the latest album. Roll With It, and Stand By Me ends the first Minidisc. Stand By Me looks to be perhaps the only track on this album that was taken from Be Here Now. So we move on to Minidisc 2, and it's Wonderwall, Cigarettes and Alcohol, Don't Look Back in Anger, Live Forever, Hey Hey My, which I can't remember how that goes. I mean, obviously I've listened to this album a few times, not for a long time, so it's something I do need to listen to again because I know I like it. but I think that's something that never got released apart from on the live Familiar to Millions album. If it was a B-side or even a future album track, then do remind me, do let me know. I do have all of Oasis's albums, but I don't recall that track being on anything other than this, so it's a bit of a rarity, I'm sure. And then number 6 on disc 2 is Champagne Supernova, then Rock and Roll Star, and they end with a cover of the Beatles' Helter Skelter. Yeah, that is Oasis Familiar to Millions. Really, really proud and happy to have this as part of my Oasis mini disc collection. I've got their first 4 studio albums, definitely maybe to Shoulder of Giants on MD, and I've also got the Master Plan B-Sides compilation on MD, and in due course we'll no doubt get round to showing you some of those as well. I want to get this series kind of mixed up really and show you different artists, different types of albums. We've started with a live album, but I think in episode 2 we will go to a studio album from a certain act. And there we are. So that was Oasis Familiar to Millions. So do please let me know whether you enjoyed this format and whether you would like to or are looking forward to seeing more from my mini disc collection in a little more detail than I've managed to show in the past. But thank you for watching nonetheless, with special thanks to my wonderful subscribers and generous patrons. I'm going to go now, and I do hope that all of you will join me again next time for another edition of Minidisc Monday in probably 2 weeks' time. Cheers everyone. See ya!